Welcome to the Enchanted Ears podcast,
where we discuss anything and everything Disney.
I'm Angela.
And I'm Joe, and on today's episode, we are talking with ultra runner Joe Corcione, who, Angela, you had followed before.
Yeah.
And it turns out he's a pretty big Disney fan.
Yeah, like I'm a big fan of his podcast. I found him through Sally McRae, who's another ultra runner that I really follow, but I listen to his podcast every week and, just like kind of we connected, and yeah, I was really excited to be able to get him to be able to be on the pod. And I mean, his Disney knowledge is quite impressive.
Yeah, I mean, he mentioned to you like, oh, I'm a big Disney fan, love what you're doing, so we invited him on. And I was like, didn't really know what to expect, but yeah, I mean, his Disney knowledge runs deep. And even if you're not like a big runner, a lot of what he talks about and kind of like,
yes,
like the course of the interview is almost like, if I could encapsulate it, it's like channeling your inner superhero. It is kind of what it ends up being about, and how, a lot of like Disney stories and things like that, like the connections with that and endurance running and things like that, and just life. And so even if you aren't like a big runner,
yeah,
it's definitely a great interview.
Well, I mean, I was ready to, we filmed this prior, so I was ready to Kool-Aid man through a wall after the interview. I mean, he's just so motivational, and again, it doesn't have to be like, you don't have to be a big runner to respect what he does, and then also to take the advice that he gives and apply it to your life in, being a parent, going out and starting your own business, anything that you want. I mean, you can take this advice and just apply it to you. But yeah, it's a really great interview.
Yeah. And so, coming off that like motivational high, I do have to say, last week we talked about who are the characters that we think are going to be out at the springtime surprise race. We did horrible at that. We will get all into that in a couple of weeks when we kind of recap the whole race, but we had a pretty low hit rate on that. I also have to say, you gave me like movie quote quizzes. Like if you haven't listened to last week's episode, it's all like a movie quote challenge. I did terrible at it. So spoiler if you haven't seen it, I did really bad. I edit all of these. I still probably didn't remember half of them. Even though I edited it, I was listening to it. I'm like, wait, what movie is that one from? Like I couldn't remember again. So I'm very, very bad at these movie quotes. Before we get into the interview with Joe, though, just one piece of Disney news did want to mention is that Pixar Fest is happening at Disneyland. It's running through the summer. It looks absolutely incredible.
So good.
What they're doing.
Pun intended.
Like they have like a new like parade cavalcade with it, but a ton of characters. Talking Doug is one of them, which is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, just the number of characters that they are bringing out that seem like characters that they previously haven't had. So like they're new characters.
Stuff.
So I mean, you do have like Mr. and Mrs. Incredible, but I believe they're wearing like the blue and black suits, which are a little bit different. I think that's one of them, or they maybe are in the park now, but I know I've just recently seen them. But the big ones are, like you said, Talking Doug. They're literally on fire because they have Ember and Wade from Elemental. They have Barley and Ian from Onward. They have Luca is one of the characters. I mean, they have brought out so many characters and announced so many characters that are going to be at this Pixar Fest, and it's just like, man, I wish that we were going to California this summer to see this.
They also hid, I want to say it's like 50. I think it's 50 is the number. Pizza Planet trucks throughout the resort. Like one of them has Grogu in it, I saw on there. And so it's like, look for these all throughout Disneyland, between the parks. So I know I saw the one with Grogu. I think they said there's 50 though. But yeah, it's just, I mean, it looks absolutely incredible if you're able to go. And plus you have this, and you have the Season of the Force, the Star Wars kind of celebration going on at the same time. So good time to go to Disneyland.
Yeah, and it ends just before D23. So if you're going out there for that, then you won't be able to see it. You'll have to go before.
Yeah, you're going to have to go earlier this summer.
But yeah, looks incredible.
All right, so let's get into our interview with Joe.
When today's interviewee isn't dreaming of Disney, he's running his own business, coaching people to run ultra marathons and training for and crushing them himself. He just finished an ultra in Croatia as a training run for the Cocodona 250, a 250-mile foot race. And if that wasn't enough, he also hosts the Everyday Ultra podcast. We are stoked to welcome Joe Corcione. Thank you so much for being here, Joe.
Oh, well, thank you for the very kind intro. I appreciate it. I always love connecting. It's so funny because like my world is all around like running and my podcast is all just about running. But like I rarely get the opportunity to like dive deep into Disney stuff, which is honestly, I think just as much of a love for me as is for running. So this is such a treat. You two do such an amazing like job at all the content you're putting out. So it's an honor to be on. I'm stoked for this and thanks for having me.
Well, thank you so much. I really enjoy like picking up on the little Easter eggs of like you mentioning you're a Disney adult. There have been a couple episodes and then you had me laughing so hard a couple days ago about like when I was listening to you about some of the things that you've seen that I'm going to ask you about on some of your runs. So
absolutely,
I'm so excited for you to talk about that.
I'm excited for it.
Yeah, and we'll get into Disney, but I did have a couple running questions to kind of get out of the way because as Angela mentioned, you run ultra marathons, which are 50 plus 100-mile races. So I think the first question and probably what a lot of people ask you is like, why do you do that? Like what got you started in that? Because that's not something I feel like people, if you run, you don't go, well, I'm going to go run 100 miles today. So
absolutely. And let me tell you, I think I still ask myself that question every once in a while, being like, why am I doing this? Because, when you're in the middle of these ultra marathons, it's a different world. It is, you go through just so much struggle and mental barriers that you're coming up on. Your legs hurt, like your stomach can be jacked up. Like there's just so much you're fighting against. And I think in the end of the day, what's super, super cool is, you really get to find out who you are in those moments, right? And for me, like I've used it as something that has helped me in my life personally, because before running and everything else, I was actually super unathletic growing up. Like I was always picked last in every single pickup game in school. I never played team sports. The only team sport I played was golf, and that's arguably a sport. And I can say that because I golf. So any golfers, like don't worry.
Too. Yeah, yep.
Yeah, nice, you get it. So, but it was never something that was in my wheelhouse. And not only was I really insecure about not being athletic, I was also insecure about not being, the coolest kid and not, having all this charisma and confidence and everything like that. And that led me to really just be super insecure about myself. And that led me to dive into tools that I thought would make me into the person that I wanted to be, which was drugs and alcohol and, just getting into a lot of bad things that ended up getting me, addicted onto some pretty hard drugs. And over kind of the years, I went through this phase where I really just was super unhappy with my life. I was moved in with my parents. I'd quit a job. I bombed a relationship I was with for years and years on end and moved back in with my parents to just kind of figure everything out. And I remember lying on the floor of the room in my parents' house and looking up at the ceiling and being like, I need to change things around or I'm going to die before I'm 30. And I don't know what it was, call it grace, call it anything else, but like something in that moment knew something had to change. And in that moment, I kind of looked up like, okay, like if I need to get my mind right, what should I get right first? And a lot of the things people said was get your body right. And so what did I do? I picked up a pair of running shoes and started running. And, lo and behold, the first mile kicked my butt. I was wheezing. I had like, I felt like Wheezy from Toy Story 2, like just hacking up a lung, just couldn't even do it. But I felt like this sense of accomplishment with it. And basically that had compounded to running 2 miles, 3 miles, 5 miles, and eventually, signing up for half marathons and marathons. And every time I did that, I always asked myself, like, what else could I do? And I was able to show myself that like, it doesn't matter who you are today. It matters who you can become in the future if you're willing to actually like face the darkness and face the demons and face like, the enemy that's inside you that's trying to hold you back so that you can become the best version of yourself, whatever that might be, right? That's why I always love like Disney stories because like usually like the character wants to become something, right? Like Simba wants to become king. Hercules wants to become that god, like, and they have to go through the trials and tribulations situations, not just fighting, the enemies like Scar or like Hydra or any of those things as well, but they have to become someone and actually do the work internally to do so. So ultra marathoning for me has been a way to do the work internally, fight the things inside of me that had the darkness. And, although I've been, grateful enough to do all these ultra marathons too, I've also been, almost 5 years sober at this point too, which is just amazing. And
That's
so
awesome.
the whole
Amazing.
ethos around ultra marathoning is it helps me to remind myself that it doesn't matter who you are today. It matters who you want to become and what you're willing to do to get there. And that's the reminder that I do with all these ultra marathons and what keeps me going in the end of the day.
That's
Wow.
incredible.
Yeah.
And you just got married too. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned on an interview, I'm not sure where it was, but you felt like the more you struggled, the more you felt fulfilled with running. And I think you kind of touched on that a little bit there, where how, 1 mile led to the next mile, led to the next mile, and just kind of pushing yourself further and further of what you could become. And I think, especially those longer distances, it's so much of a mental game. And that we just recently had the Walt Disney marathon signups just happened a couple weeks ago. So there's probably a lot of people signing up for their first marathon. I'm one of them. I'll be doing my first marathon.
Oh, dude,
there.
congratulations.
Yeah,
Let's go.
so,
We're both doing the dopey.
Yeah, doing the dopey
Nice.
challenge.
Oh
So,
my gosh, that's amazing.
like, what is your advice for someone who is looking to build that mental toughness, that mental fitness to keep them going when it gets tough?
And also just to kind of like throw that in there because, our listeners aren't necessarily runners. A lot of these like running advice, if you haven't heard kind of what Joe was saying there, a lot of the running advice really applies to life, which is really awesome because it's just, it really, I don't know, sports, there's a way that sports kind of functions that it helps you become stronger as a person in many ways. And you can apply that to any area of your life.
Yeah, 100%. And I love that you mentioned that, Angela. And first of all, like, Joe, congrats on like running your first marathon. That's going to be so awesome. I'm so excited for you both to go after it, which is amazing. But yeah, you nailed that on the head, Angela. Like it's training for life, and you can take the skills that you learn in ultra marathoning and apply it to the hard things in life, because in the end of the day, running's running, but life, as great as it can be, sometimes it presents challenges, right? Sometimes you face a difficult time at work, or sometimes things aren't going the best in, the relationship, or life just throws you a curveball, right? And I think it gives you the tools that you can be able to manage it a lot more in a way where, you become resilient, because I truly believe in life that it's not a matter of what happens to you, it's a matter of how you respond to it. We can't always control the things that happen to us. We can't always control, if, someone unfortunately passes away, or we can't control if, something bad happens in our life. But the only thing that we can control with 100% certainty is how we respond to those things. Now, I'm not saying don't feel bad about it. I'm not saying you can't feel bad. It's 100% normal to do so, right? We just watched Inside Out last night. And so I love how like the whole, tie arc at the end is highlighting that kind of message too, which is great. But in the end of the day, it's how you respond to those moments and how you show up. So to your question, Joe, like you mentioned, like being able to like handle that, right? Like how do you learn to do that? And I think it's knowing, it's first like identifying those times in your life. Like what do you do in those moments of struggle? Like, do you tend to run away? Do you tend to, try and, maybe mask it off as something else and kind of run away and not even face it? Like, do you maybe just don't give 100% effort? You maybe take down the effort a little bit more, right? I think it's first identifying those things. So like, for example, for me, I know when I'm in an ultra marathon, when my legs start getting heavy and all of a sudden the negative thoughts start coming in my head, I want to slow down a little bit. And the reason why I want to slow down is because I want that pain to stop. But I know in the future, now that I know what those things are, then number 2 is coming up with a plan to defeat that. So for me, I always say like coming up with like phrases or mantras or things in the end of the day that can be super, super powerful for you in the moment, that resonate deeply to your core, not just ones that you say it and they don't resonate you, like things that you say that like you get that emotional feeling, you get the chills, like you get that, yes, let's go, right? Like, when Buzz Lightyear says to infinity and beyond, like he's lit, like he's ready to do some rock and roll, right? So you need to find your to infinity and beyond. And so like for me, like it's saying like, okay, the faster I go, the sooner I'm going to finish, right? Because I know in the end of the day, I'm trying to escape pain. So I'm trying to like maneuver my mind a little bit, right? Or I know for me, I say, this is who I am and this is what I do. I lean into that, right? Because that makes me on there. So I suggest people, if there is some phrases, and I was even telling Angela this, like one of my biggest phrases for Cocodona is going to be Hakuna Matata. Why? Like no worries, right? Like There are things that are going to go horribly wrong in a 250-mile race. It is just Murphy's Law. It's going to happen, but ain't no worries, right? So like it's finding those things that are going to be really, really good. The other thing that I always like to say too is you want to build the most confidence to handle those things. And so I don't just mean, shouting just those affirmations or anything like else. Like one of my favorite quotes of all time is from Alex Hormozy, and that is, confidence is not built by just shouting affirmations in the mirror. It's built by building an undeniable proof and a stack of events that you are who you say you are. So what do I mean by that? It's stacking all the hard things that you've done in your life and reminding yourself in those moments that you can overcome that. So when you get to a point where you're at mile 60 in an ultra, right? Or when I'm mile 60 in ultra, like I remember I say, hey, like I remember I couldn't even run a mile, and man, I ran 100 miles before. Like I can get through these last 40 miles. Or hey, like I started up my own business, and like that's awesome. And I'm not saying this to toot my own horn. It's like, to me, these are things that I'm proud of. So I always say, like, keep a list of things that you're proud of in your life. It doesn't have to be running. It can be starting up a family. It can be, successfully crushing at your job. It can be, building a great relationship, like whatever that might be. And in those moments when that negative voice tells you you can't do it, you pull out all those things and you say, hey, no, I am freaking awesome. I can do this thing. I can rock it through. And that's real confidence, because if you just sit there and say, I can do this, your brain's going to come back and be like, no, you can't. But if you say, I have done this, the brain can't refute, and you can win every single time. So those are like my two really favorite strategies to get through that toughness. And the cool thing about that second thing is it's a catch-22. The more hard things you do, the more confident you get. So it's just an upward spiral that kind of goes, along the journey of, finding that mental toughness.
Yeah, there's a whole compounding effect to it, to your point on, you do one hard thing, so the next time you do something difficult, you go, hey, I just did that. And then it just keeps building, and you do further and further. And then you get to where you are, where you're doing 250 miles. So.
It's a crazy road.
Have you had that oh crap moment yet where you're just like, what have I done? Or you're so close now. You're like, what, a week and a half away? Not even, right?
Yeah, just less than a week and a half. Yeah. Oh yeah. I think, every once in a while I think about it, and like even right before this, like I was spending time like putting together like the pace chart and the crew stuff, and I even thought, I was like, man, like what did I get myself into? This is going to be so long. It's so crazy. But I think that's the cool thing, because there's another quote that I love, and that is, there's no better feeling than thinking there's something you can't do and then proving to yourself that you can do it. Like that is, I got chills just saying that. Like it's just, it's the most rewarding feeling. And I remember the first time I heard about people running 200 miles, I was like, there is no freaking way I can do that. And like to get to the point where it's like that, it's like amazing. And the cool thing, nothing special about me, like I'm human, and everybody listening to this podcast is human too. Like, and if you're human, you have the ability to adapt and learn. So whatever you want to do in your life, whether it's running 250 miles, whether it's running a 5K, like whatever, it doesn't have to be 200 miles. You can get there. Like you can get there, and we can all adapt and learn. And that's like the beauty of life. And I think that's just like the coolest journey of all time. And I do look to Disney movies a lot for inspiration in that. And, it's I think it's a great metaphor for, just the journey of not just ultra marathoning, but life, that a lot of these stories that we, know and love teach us, and, every time we watch them.
Yeah, I feel like the first time you pull out your headphones during Cocodona, the first song has to be Into the Unknown, right?
Oh, gotta be. Always. Yeah, I feel like that should just be playing on loop, because it's just unknown the entire time.
Yeah, it's a perfect one though.
Yes. Oh man, that's that I have like a playlist of like Disney songs that I have like queued up. That's on there. Hakuna Matata is obviously on there too. I even like This Wish, even though I haven't seen the movie yet, but I like that song too. Let It Go, obviously another good one where I can just let go of all the problems and just
Lost in the Woods. I feel like that's appropriate.
Oh, I didn't even think about that one. That's got to be a good one. I mean, hopefully not like lost, but definitely lost in my own
definitely
way.
not. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, it's awesome.
So, you've mentioned Disney. You started mentioning you have a love of Disney. You've kind of sprinkled in your Disney songs and everything. But I guess kind of going back to the beginning, like where did your love of Disney start? Is it from like a childhood? Did you kind of come to it as an adult?
Yeah, 100%. So one of my favorite stories is my parents used to always tell me. So I was born in 1995, and my favorite Disney movie came out in 1995, which is Toy Story. And
Okay.
so hence the shirt too with Pizza Planet here. But when that movie first came out, my parents told me that like that movie came out, they bought the VHS. They would sit me in front of the TV and I would watch through the whole thing. And as soon as like it would end, like I would turn to my parents and I would go again. And my parents told me that I would watch it like 4 or 5 times a day for like
Oh wow.
weeks straight.
Oh my
So
god.
like
Wow.
yeah, so I think like at a very young age, like it was just conditioned in there too. But I mean, my parents grew me up on the classics like Snow White, Cinderella, like all of just the OG Disney films, Little Mermaid, all that stuff as well. So we've always just been a Disney family at heart, and like that's always been a core part of that too. What's super cool, even before Disney, acquired Lucasfilm. Star Wars was just, I mean, as you can see,
Yeah.
is a very, very big part of my life too. Like, I will never forget, like, the first time I saw A New Hope, like, my mind was just like exploded. Like, I was like, oh my God, this is like the coolest thing ever. And so, that's just,
Did you
it's
see it in
always
theaters?
just been that big thing.
Did you see it in the theaters when they did the re-release, or is that
No,
when you
I
first
I
saw it? No,
didn't.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I saw it. I saw it on VHS, but I did see like all like the prequels, like when they first came out, which
Okay.
like I remember very
Yes.
vividly as a kid. Which, looking back like years later, you're like, ooh, like these definitely seem a little different now. But
Right.
as a kid, I mean, just seeing Darth Maul with the double bladed lightsaber was
Yes.
just like, oh my God,
That's
like,
The
I was
coolest
amazing.
thing
freaking
ever.
out. Yeah, it was just wild.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that. So you like the animated, you like Star Wars. You have a for people who maybe aren't watching this, you also have a Star-Lord mask
Yes.
behind you. So it is all your Disney jam. Do you have like a favorite?
Oh man,
I know that's hard. That's a
it's
hard
so
question.
hard. Like, you know, when I was growing up, to kind of go back to the history too, like when I think about the happiest moments of my childhood, it was going to Disney World with my family. Like there is nothing that beats that. Like I remember the first time I went to Disney World so vividly, and it was to this day, like it just gets me super emotional thinking about it. I remember coming home and just crying for weeks straight because like I wanted to go back so bad. And there's just something about that like Disney experience out there. So I think that has like a big pull with it. And this was even before, it started to integrate like obviously like, Galaxy's Edge and everything. This is like way back in the day. So I think like that's one of the big things that Disney had a pull on with me. Star Wars though, I think like from like a story perspective and like where that story lines up with like how I like to see, my journey and everything like that, like that I think relates to me like at a lot deeper of a core. So from like a story perspective, I think Star Wars kind of wins the cake, but I also love Marvel too. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I love the Marvel, the MCU is just like out of this world to me. Like, I love that stuff. I used to read the comics growing up. I was a huge Spider-Man fan. So, like, I think all of them have their own kind of rights. So like I think they're all equal. Like it's I can't, but I like them all for different reasons if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, that makes
It does
total
make sense. So if you could pick one character or a couple characters to be kind of pacers with you on a race or part of your crew on a race, who would you pick?
And maybe we'll like put some ideas in your head. I keep like talking about these hallucinations, which we're gonna get to, but I mean, maybe we could like make it happen for you, and you
Oh
can.
yes, that's true. We're just like putting.
We're gonna
in-
manifest it.
Exactly. We're just gonna manifest it. Oh man, this is probably the best question I think I've ever gotten. So like my pacer. So I think you got to go with Dash from The Incredibles, like for sure.
Oh,
just
yeah.
just because you need someone to move fast. Although I need to tell him like, hey, just chill out a little bit. Don't go too fast. Like, but I think like he's gonna be a good one to kick in the butt for sure. Oh man, I'm trying to think of like who else would be pretty good too. Damn, this is great. I think also young Simba. I think young Simba
Yes.
is just like a
Okay.
fun vibe, like
He is.
free heart, just like really confident. Like sometimes you need just like that confident, like, charisma. And
Yeah.
like what's so cool about young Simba, and yes, I know he's like a little, naive when he's like first, but like it's good to have that energy, like, when you're kind of out there. It's like to have this like fearlessness of the world and everything like that. So I'd put Simba in that mix too. And then I think You know what I also put on there? I'd also put Lightning McQueen. Like I think
Okay.
I think like he would be, even though yes, of course he's fast, but I think he's just a competitor. He's just a competitor
Yep.
at
Yeah.
heart. He's got that competitive spirit, and I mean, I even when I'm down, I'd be like, "Hey, man, can you just give me a ka-chow like real quick?" I think that would that would light me up in any scenario. Like, that would make me smile, like even if I'm just feeling the absolute worst out there.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so I've said it enough. You mentioned on one of your podcasts about your hallucinations that you had, because you runners that have been running for a while, sometimes your body starts to play tricks on you. So for the listeners who don't understand that, it's just sometimes it can happen. It's never happened to me because I've never run that far. But during Zion 100, you had some very interesting hallucinations. Can you please tell the listeners about this?
Yes, for sure. And thank you for listening. I love the research. I love the details. This is awesome. Yeah. So basically, so I was at Zion 100 and I was at mile 80 at this point. And so I'd been out there for about like 20-ish hours or so. No sleep at this point. It's pitch black and like everything looks like just a blur at this point. Like you're just battling like sleep deprivation and everything, and just, your tired legs and everything like that. And I remember like going through this place that I thought was like a wooded forest. I thought this was like in a total wooded forest, like Endor style forest. And then it was funny because, I actually went to the same place like a few weeks ago in the middle of the day, not a forest at all. Like it was literally an open mesa. So like if that just tells you the mind state I'm in, like that
Right.
pretty much explains it well. But as I'm kind of going through, like I see like the Jawas from Star Wars, like peeping their head out, and I just see the yellow eyes, the brown cloak like over their heads, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. And I'm at the point where it's like I realize I'm hallucinating, but I'm like, this is like actually kind of cool. It's kind of like I'm in Star Wars right now, like going around. So I'm seeing them like just like popping their heads out. I kind of wish I heard like an Utini every once in a while too, but they weren't talking to me. They were more just like popping their heads out and stuff. So yeah, that was a cool thing out there too. The other thing that I did see, although it's not Disney, but
It's so
I was
funny.
seeing just tons of Pokemon out there, like, and and I remember, I'm sure you heard from the podcast, like it was like a very obscure Pokemon, like I think it's called like Zadu or something like that. I don't know. It's one of like the bird Pokemons
Is it
that like
Zontu? Yeah, I know what
Zontu,
you're talking
yeah.
about. It's the one that's like I think it's supposed to be like an indigenous inspired
Yes.
type bird.
Yes.
But yeah, it's very like niche.
Yes,
It's not
so
like a
niche.
super popular one.
Right. It's not like I saw like Pikachu or like
Yeah.
Squirtle. It was like the most obscure Pokemon like out there. But I would just see that Pokemon looking at me and I'm like, oh, this is wild. And even at some part, like I saw like, myself as like a ketchup salesman. Like I was literally in my head, like going through like my ketchup sales script, but like I hate ketchup and I don't sell ketchup. So it was like a wild experience. So like, your brain goes through the weirdest things like when you're in an ultra marathon. And I was lucky enough at the point to like realize what was going on. Sometimes I've seen in these 200-mile races, I've paced them many, many times. Like people see the wildest stuff out there and like they think they're actually like in it. So I'm hoping that if I like listen to Disney stuff, I can get like a live action Disney movie out there with me. Like that would be more rad. I'd love to see more Jawas. I'd love to see, maybe Grogu flying out there. Like who knows? Like
You can run back to Pride Rock with Simba.
Yes, exactly. Give him a little hold up for good luck. Like, that's going to be the goal at Cocodona for sure.
I'm surprised you didn't see Ewoks because you said it looked like it was Endor. Surprised you
Yeah.
weren't seeing Ewoks in there.
When your brain is just so messed up, it just merges Return of the Jedi and A New Hope into the same movie. It's like it's a mashup. It doesn't know which film we're in.
So when you're running, I mean, do you typically just listen to music? Or are you just kind of thinking? I mean, like what kind of, I guess like what's in your mindset where you start, to your point, like just start thinking of things or seeing things like that? Like
Yeah, for sure. So I usually for like the first half of like a big race like that, I tend to not listen to music too much because I usually like to use music as like a tool because when you listen to music, even studies show this too, like your perceived effort of like what you're giving out actually goes down. So like you feel like you're going to be a lot more recovered than you actually are, and you're actually going to move a little bit faster and everything like that. So for me, I like to save it more so for the end because just like anything else in life, like, it has diminishing returns, right? Like it's just like cookies. Like you eat like one cookie, it's amazing. You eat two cookies, it's good. You eat three cookies, it's great. I mean, really more so. I mean, three cookies is still amazing, but you know what I'm saying? The more cookies you eat, like the less amazing it kind
Right,
of tastes in
yeah.
the moment. Same thing with music. Like if you just burn it out right in the beginning, you kind of lose that tool later on. And I'd rather use use that tool later on. So usually for the first half of like a big race, I'm usually just like honestly just taking in the moment, like being present, like looking at the scenery, like enjoying it, and like really realizing, especially in those moments like where I start to, have those thoughts like, oh, this stinks, like this hurts, like anything like that. Like it's just realizing it's like, dude, like you're out here running in the woods, like with a bunch of rad people, like doing all this cool stuff. Like how awesome is that? So really it's just like me centering in on the experience as much as possible. But at the same time, it's also like being attentive to my mind. So I think that's like a big skill that anyone can do, not just in ultra marathoning, but in life in general, is just, paying attention to what's going on in here, right? Like, I mean, it's so easy for us nowadays with phones and, notifications and everything like that to just be so outside of our mind that sometimes we don't even know like what this thing is saying in here. And in an ultra marathon, that's so important because sometimes, I should say pretty much all the time, this thing is not going to say things that are going to be helpful for you. So it's understanding that and being like, okay, what is my mind telling me right now? What are these things telling me? And what can I do to not let it get to my head? And it's just me just kind of playing the sentinel in my mind. Then usually halfway through, I'll start to play some music, start to get a little bit of a push. But at one point, the music will wear off, and then it just pretty much just becomes like a battle with like the internal enemy, right? So like for me, it's like that voice is going to be loud, my legs are going to be hurting, and it's like, how can I really just like take this negative thing like head on and start to circumnavigate it? And I think the more familiar you get with that voice, like the easier you can defeat it, like I mentioned before. And I think that really starts with just getting in tune with it. So like I've just kind of gotten comfortable with that because, I think if I just listen to music the entire time, like, and gosh forbid, like the headphones die out there or something like that, and you're left alone with your thoughts and like you haven't spent too much time with it, like it's a sticky situation to be in. So for me, I'm always like, okay, like let's go to war with the enemy in the mind and take him down.
Yeah, so you basically kind of almost kind of going with this, you've built basically your own superhero. So can you talk a little bit about your racing alter ego and the yellow glasses? And also, if Edna Mode were to design you a super suit to go with the glasses, what would it look like?
Oh my gosh. Another amazing question. I love this podcast. This is incredible. Anyone here, like if you're a first time listener, like you better be listening to this podcast like every time an episode's out, because I know I will be. Yes. So the alter ego concept, which is super cool because if you are a huge Disney, Star Wars, Marvel fan, like I feel like this is a concept that's just going to be like perfect. And what's super cool is like if you're doing something like the Disney Marathon or the Dopey Challenge, like you can dress up as your alter ego, which like is super, super cool. So not saying you can't do it in an ultra marathon, you 100% can, but some of them can be really hot. So like, I think I'd probably want to, have a little bit of things, like, which we can give the specs to Edna on that. But anywho, the alter ego concept, right? So if you think about like, let's just use, Marvel characters, for example, here, right? When we think about the best version of the heroes that we know and love, right? So we have T'Challa, we have Natasha Romanoff, and we have Peter Parker, right? The best versions of them are not the names that I just mentioned. The best version of T'Challa is Black Panther. The best version of Natasha is Black Widow. The best version of Peter Parker is Spider-Man. There are their alter egos, and those alter egos symbolize something. They symbolize, the strength, the confidence, the courage, the justice, like all those things that bring out the great qualities of those people so they can be the best version of themselves to achieve their mission, which all of those three, like and above, is to do the good for humanity, right? Now, for you, your mission might be different. Your mission might be, you want to raise awareness for, breast cancer, or you want to, just see what you can do internally, or maybe you want to inspire other people. Like everybody has a mission, right? And sometimes it's harder for us to complete a mission that we're going for or a task when sometimes we're being just I don't want to just minimize this, but like ourselves, right? I know for me, I'll give you an example. Like for me, like I said, even though I've kind of gone through this journey where I've made all these changes internally and everything like that, like there's still that insecure kid from high school who's still inside of me, right? Still has those thoughts, still has those feelings and everything like that. And I will tell you in an ultra marathon, those have come up multiple times. Now, the concept of an alter ego is to step out of that person and become the best version of yourself, right? And so that is namely putting down all the qualities, characteristics, skill sets, attitudes, thoughts, behaviors, all these things that are going to help you to complete your mission, whether it is an ultra marathon, whether it is a hard task, or whether it is, showing up to work as like an absolute boss and like, giving your best effort, whatever that might be, right? Or going to the Disney Marathon and getting a PR, whatever that might be, right? You want to define all those characteristics that come into that as well. So once you define all those characteristics, then you also want to also write down the people that you admire or characters. We'll stick with characters in this scenario because this is a Disney podcast. So all the characters that embody those characteristics that you see on there. So for example, if you really, really want to embody someone who never gives up and who is always resilient no matter what the challenge, you might write down like Captain America, right? I mean, gosh, like that scene where Thanos is just beating him down in Endgame and he gets back up with the broken shield. And basically it's just him against a whole, I mean, oh my God, like chills, like it's just amazing. So you write down all those characters, right? Like maybe also too, you write down on that list that, you have Woody, someone who's like loyal and is always there for like his friends and his team and everything like that, right? So you write down the characters that really, really resemble those things. Then you come up with your alter ego, and hey, your alter ego might just be one of the names I mentioned. It might be Captain America. It might be Woody. It might be, Princess Tiana, it could be whoever resonates with you in that moment. And that's going to be the person that you step into in the moment as well. So you come up with the alter ego. So that way, in the case of running the Disney marathon or showing up to work or an ultra marathon, you step into that alter ego. You step into that character. So you can step into your race as Mr. Incredible or as Lightning McQueen or as Buzz Lightyear, like whoever that is. And in that moment, you become that person and you become the characteristics and traits. Now, I know this sounds woo-woo. I know this sounds like crazy, but there's actually scientific studies that have been done on this by Ivy League schools. They actually did a study where they had two groups of kids. They gave them complex math problems to solve. The one group of kids, they said, hey, just go out and solve these math problems. Go out and take care of it. And just solve it, as you. The second group, they said, hey, think about your favorite superhero, character, anything like that, and solve these math problems on here. What they found was that the group that actually solved the math problems as their favorite superhero or movie character or anything like that, not only solved the problems quicker, but they also showed greater resilience. Meaning when they came up against problems that they were stuck on, they were saying things like, oh, Superman doesn't go out and give up in scenarios, or Black Widow doesn't just give up in the middle of a fight. Like they were shown to be more resilient and get through those things. And they showed this through like different scientific controlled tests and everything like that too. So it's a part of our nature to step into alter egos. And I think that's one of the cool reasons why when people go to Disney and you dress up as your favorite character, you feel like you are that character. So like this is all something that we do internally, and you just apply it to a hard challenge and you become that person. Now, real quick, the glasses, to your point, right? It's one thing to just, sit there and say, oh, I'm becoming Black Panther right now. You want to have something that actually activates that thing. So my alter ego, real quick, is called Lupo. And so Lupo is the Italian name for wolf. And the reason why I have that as my alter ego is for two reasons. Number one, I admire the wolf, like as an animal in general. The wolf is bred for endurance. It hunts down its prey by going long periods of time. It's not a quick kill kind of thing. Like it goes for very, very long periods of time. And someone who does ultra marathons, I want that endurance. I want to channel those things. But the second thing too is the wolf is for the pack. It does things for the pack. It does things for its family. It does things for that as well. And for me, like why I started the podcast and why I do what I do is I want to inspire other people to be the best versions of themselves. So I'm doing this for the pack. And the reason why I call it the Italian name is not just because my last name is incredibly Italian, but also because...
My maiden name is too.
Oh, yes, it is. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yes, exactly.
Exactly.
Molto bene. So at I also love Rocky Balboa. So as much as I love Disney, like Rocky is also one of my favorite movies of all time. And seeing a guy like Rocky, who everybody counted out, no one expected anything of this guy. Like he's just the true underdog story. Go for 15 rounds against the world champion, best boxer in the world, Apollo Creed. And even though he gets the absolute snot beaten out of him round after round, he still gets back up and he asks for more, like when he gets knocked down. And like, I'm just like, oh, I love that so much. Like every time I watch that scene, I cry. It's incredible. And so I made that alter ego of Lupo, of basically being the wolf out there. So the glasses, the activating thing is I put on the glasses and it has this like yellow tint on there. And the reason why I do that is because when you look at a wolf's eyes, they have yellow eyes and they see in the tint of yellow. So in that moment when I put it on, I become the wolf. So to complete your alter ego journey, once you have it defined, whether it is Buzz Lightyear, whether it is, Spider-Man, whatever those things are, find an activating totem is what it's called to put on, whether it's a ring, whether it's, a costume, whatever that might be, and you step into the alter ego fully. Now, if Edna Mode is coming to me and she's like, I'm trying to do the impression here, I don't know if I'm going to butcher, but she's like, Joe, like, tell me your costume. I don't know. I don't know why she just became Italian there.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, slightly Italian there, even though, I don't know. Like, I guess I just like infused a little Lupo to it. What I would do is I would make like a very like breathable suit that almost like looks very wolf-like, but is incredibly like, I don't know what the word is, like stretchy in the
Mobility.
point
You
where
said
it kind
mobility
of,
with it.
No,
yeah.
not pliable, but
Oh,
like,
yes. I
yeah.
think that's the right word, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking about? Like you can like move, like not anything where I'm like stiff and, can't move, but anything
Yeah, you
where
don't
I'm
want to be
just
restricted
Yeah.
or anything.
exactly
Yeah.
where I can like
Yeah.
move
But
around a
then,
little bit more, right?
but like
I
covers
also,
a lot of the skin so you don't chafe.
yes, exactly. So anti-chafing stuff. So as she's going through like the thing, she's like, I know that ultra runners chafe. So, I have this thing built in where it doesn't let you chafe. So therefore you don't even have to put on the lubricant. You are good, darling. Like, something like that. So definitely something anti-chafing on there too. And then also built in like cooling mechanisms to like cool me down. Cause when I get out there, I
Ooh,
get
that's
pretty
good.
hot. Like I'd love like a nice little cooling mechanic down in there too. But also this is probably the most important thing. I want it to be like black because I love the color black. The problem is when you're running out, I'm in Arizona, it's hot. You can't wear black out. So I'm always wearing white and I hate it because I'm like, oh man, I feel like I look so much cooler in black. So like a
There's
black
something about
suit,
black.
but it doesn't absorb heat. Like Edna, if you can do that for me, you are my darling. Let me tell you, like that would be Lupo's suit on there as well. So very long-winded answer, but this applies to anything in ultra running, applies to anything in your work, your family. Like you can have like your ideal dad, right? Like if you want to pick like an ideal dad from like a Disney story that you just like embody like so much, like Mufasa or something like that. R.I.P. to my man. But then that's who you can embody in any area of life.
By the way, today my students took state tests, and I told them to imagine themselves, because it was the third day in a row of English like language arts, and I told them to create an alter ego. Like I legitimately cited you on this because I was like, I know that it's the third day in a row and you are so done with this, but just step out of yourself whenever you want to quit, because you got to keep going. The only way out is through.
Oh, that's so cool. Did you like hear any like alter egos from people or like who they would want to be?
No, that I didn't. I didn't ask them, but I mean, it was really funny. They were so cute. And then like we ran at recess. Like I wanted to get my recovery run in today, so we ran, and a bunch of the kids kept jumping in with me. It was adorable.
Oh, that is so awesome. Well, that's so cool. You're teaching your kids that. It's a cool thing to teach kids too. Like, and so I love that you're teaching kids that. Like, and same thing with ultra marathoning. It's not just something for ultra marathons. It's for kids. It's for I think like when you and in full transparency, I'm not a parent, but like I've read just a few parenting books. As obviously we're looking ahead a little bit, but it's good to, I think, have that sense of resiliency as a kid, right? And I think that's why such a cool thing about Disney movies is like there's so many stories of resilient characters that you start to think about, and it starts to teach you those things as well. So I think it's so awesome that you are telling your kids that and putting that lesson in them.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, and that's a great outfit. And you didn't mention a cape, so you're
No
good.
cape.
Yeah.
No
If I
capes,
did,
no
she
capes.
would not make the suit.
But what happens at night though, Joe? You might do you have a layer to go over top at night when it starts to get cold in the desert?
That's true. I guess I would also need like a heating thing too. Like as it can cool, but it can also heat, because I think the most frustrating thing, I'm sure y'all can relate, is like when you're running and like you don't know if it's like hot or cold. And like for me, like I'm a classic overdresser. Like I look out and I'm like, it's 45 degrees, which some people on the East Coast are like, oh my gosh, you baby. But like for me, like I'm like, that's cold. So like I'll wear a sweatshirt and stuff. I'm out there for like 5 minutes and I'm already sweating.
Yep.
And I'm like, like Joe, way to go. Now I'm just schlepping this sweatshirt around. So if I can have like a body temperature regulating suit,
That would be amazing.
That's the super suit right there. And then I can go out and give a little Frozone, where's my super suit, to my wife, which would be like, oh, that would be ideal scenario.
That'd be good.
I think that's the most annoying part of running for me, is that like there's no way to turn off the sweat mechanism.
Yes.
So it could be cold outside and you're sweating profusely, and the second that you slow down or stop, you are freezing. At least, I mean, I run cold, so like I'm freezing immediately.
Yes, I know. It's such like an interesting thing. And what's super like crazy about the desert, you mentioned this before, is like it gets so hot during the day, but it gets really cold at night. There's actually a race here called the Javelina 100, which, it's in the end of October, which is still like, 90 degrees here, but people get hypothermic. And even though it's 90 degrees during the day, because it's so hot, people sweat so much. The way you can cool yourself down, like during the dry desert heat, is like you just douse yourself with water and it actually like evaporates off your skin. That's actually why we sweat too, because that sweating is supposed to evaporate. However, if you live somewhere like Florida, that water's staying on you because it is too dang humid. But regardless, what happens is like people put all this water on them and then they start sweating, and then all of a sudden it goes down to 50 degrees at night and people get hypothermic because they start moving slower. Maybe they're sitting at the aid stations and your body's just like, yep, we're shutting down. And the body's weird. The body's weird. So if Edna can come up with a self-regulating thing, I think all of us ultra runners would be like, yeah, this would be great. But I think I just keep the soup for myself as a competitive advantage, and also give it to you too, of course, too. Because
hey, thank you very much. I
Exactly,
appreciate
yes.
it.
I want to go back to one thing really quick. You were talking about running and just kind of like the headspace as you're running and kind of like trying to quiet your mind and things like that. And it got me thinking, like you mentioned, like a lot of like notifications, like social media, phones, and I feel like people's attention spans are down, and it's everybody wants instant gratification type things, and I feel like it is sometimes hard to kind of quiet your mind because you're so used to that. Do you do any sort of like phone detox thing where you kind of, when you're preparing for a race, like, hey, I don't even want to look at my phone, I don't want to have notifications for a while, to kind of get your mind ready?
Do you taper your phone?
It's such a good question. So for me, where I kind of do my work too, like I'm on my phone a lot. Like I'm usually messaging clients. I communicate through text a lot too. So usually like I'm on my phone a lot. And it's really interesting because for me, I'm a very like, I have ADHD. My mind is just going 24/7. It is just wild. Like the things that if you like zoomed into my mind, like it would just be wild. But in a good way, of course. I think it's all a good thing for us to be, a little ADHD in our life every once in a while. But my point to that is like I'm very much like a go kind of person. So I'm always usually on, like usually like my day's filled like doing something, whether it's podcasts or running or like anything like that. There's always something going on, and that can come, that can be good sometimes, but also that can come as a fault. And, sharing a really insightful lesson for me was last year I did a race called the Canes 100K, which is actually happening this weekend. So literally, I think it was like a year ago to this week, which is wild. But I was basically burning the candle at both ends, just doing everything. I was like, at the time I was working a full-time job. I was also doing the podcast. I was also doing the running thing. I had committed to a bunch of different things as well. And I was going through a lot of stressful stuff, and I was just on. And it just like, literally my brain was just on all the time. Then when I got to the race, like I was doing great for like the first 30 miles, and it was like a 62-mile race. First 30 miles, I was doing great. And then all of a sudden, like it started to get hard, and like my brain just was kind of like, hey, I'm done. Like you're going way too hard, buddy. Like you've been going too hard for too long. Like you need to like chill the heck out. And I remember it was just so hard for me. So for me, like what I do to relate back to your question, like one thing that I do to help to like ease my mind a little bit is like now, usually the days before the race, like I really just take it super chill and super, super easy. And then, really just try to control the controllables as much as possible. Now notice how I say that, because listen, you can't always just remove every single piece of stress from your life. Stress going to pop up and everything like that. But I'm not booking myself on like a million meetings 2 days before the race. I'm not, planning to work like 2 days before Cocodona just so I can give myself that time to chill. And I think, one of the hardest lessons that I've had to learn, and I'm still not perfect at it, I'm still trying to do this, is like sometimes the best thing that you can do is nothing. Nothing. And like, I'm a high achiever. Like I love that stuff. Like I'm a very much like, GSD, like let's do this stuff like all the time. And, one of my biggest struggles is just doing less, because sometimes when you do less, it allows you to do more because you fill up your own cup. And I think when it comes to taking on a big task like an ultra marathon or anything else, like a marathon, anything like that, where you are going to require a lot of mental output, it's good to give your time a little bit time to just, kind of be. Now, sometimes people say, hey, well, I got kids. Like I can't just walk away from being a father. Like they're waking me up in the middle of the night and everything like that. I get it 100%. And so in the alternative scenario, even if something in my mind is here, it's more so just trying to, again, control the controllables. And that just comes to just checking in with yourself and just being like, hey, what's going through my mind right now? What are the thoughts that I'm having? How can I manage these things? How can I really be in touch with this? So instead of just, hopping on the phone and just scrolling on Instagram, or whether it's, just trying to run away from it or trying to consume yourself in something else, you're internally reflecting in. And it doesn't have to be quieting your mind. It's just being aware of your mind. And I think I don't meditate, but like I study meditation a lot, like, and I used to actually meditate a lot. I don't do so now as much anymore. But the cool thing about meditation is that a lot of people think it's just quieting your mind, but actually that's actually false. Really with meditation, what you're doing is much more being aware of your thoughts and not letting them consume you. So it's not turning off your mind. It's literally just seeing your thoughts for what they are and just not letting them control your things as well. And one of the biggest quotes that I found out in my life, and this is another tool that you can use to get through hard things, is negative thoughts only have power for you if you believe them to be true. So if you have that thought come in your head saying like, oh my gosh, like I'm so stressed for this race, I'm going to fail, I'm going to screw up. If you believe that to be true, you're going to be what? Stressed out. But if you're like, oh no, I've done the work, like I've done all this stuff, I've done the training, like I've gone through this before, it's not going to have power over you. How many times have you thought like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to totally beat the crap out of this person because they're being so annoying. Like you think about that in your head, but you don't actually think you're crazy or, violent or anything like that because you're like, it's just a stupid thought. You didn't believe that thing, right? But in the end of the day, right, the same thing can be true with all the negative thoughts, but we think them to be true and they have power over us. So the more that we can get in tune with ourselves, the more that we can ultimately see those thoughts as false. And I think just checking in, giving your time to just do nothing and just sit alone with your thoughts, as scary as that is, I think is a great way to circumnavigate those things and, prepare for the battle that you're about to go on, whether it's, your first marathon, first 5K, anything like that, or ultra marathon. I think it's getting to know the voice within.
Well, I know that you said it during one of your podcasts, and you said it was like an old quote. You were actually the first person I ever heard say this, was the whether you believe you can't or you can, you're right. Mm-hmm. And like that resonated with me so hard because I think that is just, that belief and just knowing that like, okay, like you've done the work, you've put it in, and now you just have to kind of believe that you can do it and not let those negative thoughts creep in.
100%. Yeah. And it's like such like it's such an interesting concept, right? Because we hear all those things all the time, but people saying, believe in yourself, like you can do it. And if you believe you can get there, but it's so true. It's so true. Like I've seen like some of the most talented runners in the entire world. They have all the talent in the world, but because for some reason they don't believe in themselves, or maybe they had a failure in the past and they define them as themselves, they don't end up doing what they want to do in that moment. And I've seen some people who have less talent, who have less training, who have less all these things, have just massive belief about themselves, and they go out and do it. Like one of the most incredible stories that I have from one of my athletes. So my athlete, he was going through just some hip pain and, was really just having some struggle with some time running, but he really wanted to run this 100-mile race. Now, I'm not advising anyone do this, by the way, but it's just an example here. So I'm not saying don't run a 100-mile race when you're injured or anything like that too. This is not what I'm saying here. That's not the point I'm trying to go at. But anyways, he really wanted to do that. And I told him, I said, hey, listen, like we really can't run too much. You're going to have to kind of get through this. And he was like, I know I'm going to do this. I know I'm going to do this. I know I'm going to finish this race. And with minimal training and everything, he got the race done. And I was like, dude, like, I'm just curious. Like, tell me this. He's like, there was never one doubt that I was going to fail this. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. And then I compare it to some of my other friends who put in so much training, and mile 50 or 60, they're just like, I don't know. I just didn't think I could do it. And it's like, what the heck? And so it's just like such a matter of like belief and difference that can make the whole world of it. And so I think to get that belief is like, you have to like truly internalize that and believe it to your core. You can't just say, I believe in myself. Like you have to believe it to your core. And I think one of the best practices to do this, and I did this in the moment when, I was really cleaning myself up and like having my life like in order, like every night before I went to bed, this was literally every night, I would take 5 minutes and I would write down all the things that I was proud of in my life and all the things I was proud of to do on that day. And even if my day went crap, even if my day went just so bad and like everything went wrong, there was always at least 1 or 2 things that I could be proud of on those days. Because here's the reality too. It's like whatever you see, whatever you focus on, like you're going to find it, right? If you're going to find brown in your life, you're going to find brown. If you're going to find red in your life, you're going to find red. But if I tell you to find brown and you were looking for red, guess what? Like you're not going to see any red anywhere around, even though there's like an apple right out there. So in the end of the day, like it's being able to like shift your focus to the things that you can do as opposed to what you can't do, and subconsciously programming it through constant reminder of yourself. And ultimately that becomes automatic as opposed to something that's forced. And through that belief, that's where you can really accomplish anything. So yes, that quote to summarize, like whether you believe you can or you can't, you can do it. You just got to build that belief to make it way more powerful than that negative thoughts that come in your head. And you can absolutely accomplish anything in your life.
Yeah, that's one of the things I actually like really admire about you. And that kind of, anybody looking to build that positivity, like if you listen to Joe's podcast, which obviously you should go do that, he's amazing, but if you listen to his podcast, he is just overflowing with positivity. I mean, he's definitely a kind of person that you want to be around and you want to spend time listening to. I listen to you on the way to work, on the way home, and so like, and that's part of a practice. Like that is part of, you practice doing that, and the more you focus on that, like you said, the more that you get accustomed to doing it and the easier it becomes.
100%. Well, thank you for all your kind words. I appreciate that. It seriously means the world to have your support, like, in so much. And yeah, it's just like a big thing, because even if you look at successful people, and I'll name, the guy who started all this, Walt Disney. I mean, like, you read his story, like, and I encourage, if you haven't read the story about how he started Disney, like, please do. It's so inspiring, because I think we see everything of his impact today, right? We see the parks, we see the films, we see everything, like all the stuff on there. And yes, Walt Disney was just an incredibly driven dude, but what people don't realize is he got denied so many times. He went bankrupt so many times before he actually had an inkling of success. And he always believed in himself. He always believed in his dream, and he never gave up on that. So really, in the end of the day, when people think about like the famous Disney thing, like when you wish upon a star, like it is really true. Like it is really true, and it's embedded in the Disney ethos. And I think like, man, like I remember the first time reading about Walt Disney's story, it just makes everything just so much more cool when it comes to like everything that's built. Because when you see someone like Disney go through just massive amounts of failure to creating an empire that like basically everybody loves, and it impacts the lives of millions and billions of people all around the world, like it's just it just shows what anyone can do, which is amazing.
Yeah, it is. So okay, kind of switching gears a little bit. So when you first messaged me, like I messaged you and then you messaged me back, you said that for your 30th birthday, you have requested to, your wife said you can go anywhere in the world. And this is again how I know you're a real one. You said, I want to go to Walt Disney World for my birthday. So for you, what is a perfect day at the parks? Like, what does that look like for you?
Oh my gosh. Yes. It's so funny because like, and I love that you two get it. It's amazing because like, it's so funny because like, and I'm not saying that like, the running community don't get it, but like, a lot of people I think would, if they were to ask me that question, like they would think, oh, like he's going to some crazy running location or anything like that. I'm like, nah, I'm going to Disney World. Like that is an easy like yes for me. And like I've even thought about like it was like if I was given the choice between to go race UTMB or like do like Disney World, that's a very hard choice for me. Like, and as much as I love running, like I love Disney more, like a lot. So, but yes, so my ideal day at the park, I think for me, like it really all starts down to rope dropping. Like I think a lot of times it's either like, oh, like let me relax and take a leisurely day. Like nah, like I'm maximize the day as much as possible. So I am rope drop through and through, hitting up a Joffrey's coffee with some extra espresso shots in there because it's like we're being caffeinated for this day for sure. Genie Plus.
Did you stop at Gideon's the night before so that you can have a cookie to start your day?
Oh, I actually have not done that, but I need to do that now.
You have to try their cookies. They're so good.
Oh my gosh, I have to try that.
Yeah, they have different, I don't know. They had one, like we just went down and they have one that's like, it was like a white chocolate macadamia nut type cookie. It was delicious. But also they have like a banana chocolate chip one.
Oh
it's
my
amazing.
gosh.
Anyway, continue. So you had your Joffrey's coffee.
I'm hungry now. Like I'm just like I need to add myself list. So after my cookie the night before, yes, I wake up, grab usually a coffee with double shot from Joffrey's, and I'm ready to go. Now I'm a Genie Plus must. Like that's just me. Like I know, very contentious topic, but I'm just like, hey, like I want to maximize the day. So like I'm always good with just, paying the extra to, maximize as many rides as possible. And if I hadn't been on the ride before, like I'm an individual lightning lane guy. So like when I go to Animal Kingdom, like I've never been on Flight of Passage, like I will get that individual lightning lane, like for sure. Like that's just me. Like, cause like if I really like it too, like I would go again. Like the first time I ever did Rise of the Resistance, which was 2 years ago, I cried. Like I was like, literally like that is the only thing I could have done in this park for the entire day and like I would be fine. Like it's just these new rides for me are just like such a euphoric experience. So like, but for me, like I also want to like experience the park and try the food. So like for me, I try to minimize wait times as much as possible. So like I'm willing to do that. So Genie Plus, make sure to get the individual lightning lanes. And then usually like I'm planning out the day. Like I'm like, we're hitting here. Like I'm very much like, it's so funny because my wife always laughs at me at this. She's like, yeah, for like everything else in your life, you're incredibly disorganized. But like when it comes to like Disney vacation or everything, you're just like boom, boom, boom. So usually I have the whole day planned out the night before and I'm hitting like all the rides, like strategically nailing all the stuff. I always make a list of like all the foods I want to eat. I make sure to eat all the foods. I make sure to review all the foods as well. Just more so for my personal kind of take as well. And so it's really just a matter of hitting every single ride in there if I can, making sure I can eat every single piece of food that I can too. And then always got to watch whatever nighttime show is there. And I don't think I've ever been in a nighttime show where I've at least shed, 2 tears, like, because like, it's just, it hits me every time. But basically on there, I'm rope drop to close, go back, feet sore, belly full, like sugar rush up the wazoo. And then the next day, just getting ready to do it all again. Like that's the perfect day for me.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's
awesome.
Good lead into maybe some kind of like rapid fire questions here on like what your favorites are. So we'll start with, what's your favorite park?
Oh, Magic Kingdom, like Magic Kingdom and Walt Disney World. So, when I was growing up, I went to Walt Disney World. Like we lived in New York, so like it was easier for us to go to Walt Disney World. I live in Arizona now, so we've been going to Disneyland over the past 2 years. And I actually I've been to Disneyland when I was like a kid before I can even remember, but, this is going to cause a lot of contention, so I apologize. But like going to Disneyland versus Disney World, like to me, it's like no compare. I get the history around Disneyland, but like Disney World's like a universe. Like it's just like you're in this different world. It's wild. So like, but Magic Kingdom, like so many happy memories. I remember the first time going into Tomorrowland and like speechless, like just like, oh my God, like this is wild. And then, going into Frontierland and seeing the Country Bears and like all like the OG kind of rides. I know it's not like the OG ones like in Disneyland, but like that to me encapsulates Disney is Magic Kingdom. And like that castle to me is the castle for me. I know like a lot of people are like, Sleeping Beauty Castle, Joe, like pipe down. But like to me, Cinderella's castle, that's the one when I think of Disney.
Yes.
Yeah. I will say, we typically go to Walt Disney World.
Yeah, we're East Coasters.
We're East Coast
too.
as well,
Yeah.
so,
you got it. Yeah.
But we've been, I think it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago was the first time we went to Disneyland, and we've gone a couple times since then. It does grow on you. I feel like our first time we were kind of like you, of like, what?
Yeah.
Like, where's the castle? Like, what's everybody talking about? But it definitely does grow on you, like the nostalgia of it.
They plus the rides in ways that you're like, when you go back and forth, you're like, oh, like, wow, that's actually interesting. That what is it? Was it Big Thunder Mountain? Is that the Big Thunder Mountain Railroad is one where they add extras to it, and you're like, wow, they did make it a lot better. But I
you'll be a
you
convert. A couple more years.
I will say,
you'll be like, I start to see it. You'll be like, I get it now. So.
The first time I went on the Pirates in Disneyland, I was like, I don't remember this ride being so long. Like I was like, this is so much longer here. Like what the heck? And so like, so yes, I think there's like a lot of cool things about Disneyland. Yeah. So I'll probably be a convert, but like, I'm excited to go to Disney World. It's gonna be rad.
It is also nostalgic too. I mean, like, it's for you, for us, it is a nostalgic place because that's the place we visited as a child.
Yeah. So that is the bias. I'm not a Disneyland hater. Like, trust me, I love Disneyland. Like, I've been begging my wife to let's go to Pixar Fest. Like, let's go do it. Like, and so I'm not a Disneyland hater by any means, but it's like Disney World to me. I think you're right. It's just that was my home as a kid. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, who is your favorite character?
Oh man, does Star Wars and Marvel count with this too? Or
yeah, you can do anything. Sure.
Man, it's really hard because I gotta say it's a tie. So I think Woody is like to me my favorite character, like Disney wise, like what he stands for, and like even so, like I even like a lot of the problems that Woody faces, right? Like you think about Toy Story 1, he gets jealous of Buzz, and Toy Story 2, he wants to be in the limelight of Woody's Roundup and everything like that, and kind of makes the nearsighted decision of like I can see a lot of like the things that like mistakes I've made in my past and like everything like that, and almost see that in Woody. So like I relate to him on such a deep level, and he's so loyal. He's always there for his friends. Like he's never gonna give up. Like I think that's just like such a just qualities that like I don't even want to just have as an ultra marathoner, but as a person. So I love Woody, but also at the same time, Luke Skywalker is my gosh, every time I see the scene of him looking out at the twin suns, like it wrecks me every time. Like just because he looks at like the two paths he can take, the old life that he's living or the life of adventure that he knows deep down that he wants. And you got John Williams just slaying it on like oh my God, just so good. And just seeing him go from this thing, and I'll give a hot take on here that again might ruffle some feathers, but I like the way that he was portrayed in The Last Jedi. I will say that will get a lot of people disagreement, but I think it's very human because it goes through someone who had gone through this amazing life, had an epic failure, saw all the weight of it on himself. But guess what? In the end of the day, he redeems himself. He becomes the hero and he completes his mission at the end. And I just love the whole arc of Luke Skywalker. And I see very much a similar thing of me and kind of my ultra running journey, which is amazing.
That's an interesting take on Luke.
It is an interesting take on. It makes me respect him a little bit more as a character. But I like your pick of Woody. I really never thought about it this way, but he does have like quite the character arc over the movies. Like he really starts as like this kind of like jerk that's really selfish, and then he does grow into like a very selfless like stand-up guy. I mean, for lack of a toy guy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he is like very crass in the first one. Then you go to like Toy Story 4 and he's like trying to save like Forky, and like he goes from literally trying to kick someone out in the first one to basically trying to protect another toy because it makes that kid's happy. And like if he wanted Buzz Lightyear to throw himself away in the first one, he would be like, yeah, go do it. And then the fourth one, he's trying to save this fork that like, you know, is taking more of the time than Woody. And it's just that's so cool, man. Like it's just like that's life right there. It's just character development, and Woody has gone through it in 4 movies. Did I think the fourth one was necessary? I don't know, but like it was good. It was still good. So
well,
I was gonna say we're getting a fifth one now. So
yeah, I know, like they just won't end. But hey, I'm not complaining. I love Toy Story, so it's good.
Yeah.
You mentioned Joffrey's already, so I don't know if that'll be the answer to this one. But what's your favorite kind of park snack?
Oh, favorite park snack. You know, I think after going to Galaxy's Edge a few times, like I literally dream of that Ronto wrap like all the time. Like I dream of it. I don't know what it is. The first time I had it, it just hit different. So I think the Ronto wrap at Galaxy's Edge is the number one for me for sure.
I don't think we've ever tried the Ronto wrap, and I just saw somebody else just post about how good it was. So now I'm gonna have to get it next time.
So is that like your go-to place for like a meal too, or do you have like a restaurant that you prefer that you always go to?
You know, it's funny, when I was a kid, like, and this is like on the shirt, I don't think it's still there because I haven't been to Disney World in a while, but I used to love and apparently it wasn't great, like food wise, but like I used to love going to the Pizza Planet place at Hollywood Studios growing up, just because it was Pizza Planet. And like, I was like, oh my God, it looked like the great place. So nostalgically, that was the place. But yeah, for me, I love eating in Galaxy's Edge just because I love the blue milk. I love the cold brew that they have with like the Cocoa Puffs in there. Like, I just love all like the little snacks that they have because it's just so Star Warsy. It's just like very cool stuff, and it's like just everything about Galaxy's Edge just is so well done, unbelievably done. So I do love that place, and I will say I do also like Pim's Test Kitchen in California Adventure at Avengers Campus. Like that chicken sandwich is to die for. So big fan of that chicken sandwich for sure.
So I think that you kind of I feel like I maybe know where you're leaning on this, but you know, going along with the character, what's your favorite movie?
I mean, yeah, it's got to be Toy Story, I think. Like, but I think even above Toy Story, like I think Star Wars: A New Hope is my favorite. A lot of people like to default for Empire, and listen, Empire is perfect film, 10 out of 10, so good. But for me, like A New Hope is just it's the quintessential story of the hero's journey, the quintessential story, like someone who, you know, wants to become something. He goes through the struggles, like, and then ends up being the hero in the end of the day, the unlikely hero, goes through the trials and tribulations. It's awesome. And yes, it gets even further, obviously, when he trains under Yoda and, Empire, but I just love A New Hope and all around it, and the characters and just like the dynamics between Han and the princess and Obi-Wan. It's just all 4 different characters just getting along and not getting along in some scenarios. Like that is like adventure to me, and I think that's what life's all about. So A New Hope to me, I think, is my favorite movie of all time.
Nice.
Good pick.
Yeah.
All right, you've already had some hot takes, so I think you'll be okay to challenge. Take this one on. But this is probably the most controversial one. So in Epcot, do you start in Mexico or Canada?
Oh, you're really gonna put me on this one, huh? Like I've already probably like had some people be like, oh, this guy, like now they're just waiting on the edge of my seat. You know, I've done both. I used to drink, so I used to do the around the world thing. I think I gotta go with Mexico. I think
okay.
I think that's the one, and I don't know if it's just because I like starting out in Mexico better, because like Canada just seems like, I don't know. Mexico just seems a lot more fun to me and festive and just kind of like kicking off the vibes that way. So I think I'm gonna have to go with that one.
So we always cop out and we say we start in France. We come in the international gateway.
Whoa. That is, see, that's like option 3. I didn't know it was option 3. Wait, so wait,
take the Skyliner.
You take the
and come
Skyliner
in
because
France.
we used to always stay at Art of Animation or Pop Century, so then we would always just go in that way, and we could just completely avoid the question.
That's how we avoid all controversy.
Wow, so you guys won the game. Like that is like I can't even compete. Like I feel like I was like, dang, that is there. So you guys win that one. That's good. So I mean, when we go back, I might have to try Canada or even France just to see just to compare all the experiences.
Have you eaten at Le Cellier? The poutine is quite good.
I have not, but I need to add it to the list now. Like in that list that I told you that I make, I'm adding that poutine on there for sure.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, Le Cellier is good, and then I mean France, now that they have Remy, the Remy attraction there, like it's nice to start there too. But I'm interested to see Epcot too, even with like I avoid every spoiler like I can for Cosmic Rewind, but like because as you can see, like my favorite Marvel hero is Star-Lord, so like I love the Guardians, and so like I've tried to avoid every single walkthrough like description of like Cosmic Rewind, so I'm excited for that, excited for Remy's. Like Epcot, I feel like the last time I went was years ago. I feel like it's such a more full park now, so I'm excited to see it, and also my boy Figment, because like dude, like I'm a Figment guy through and through. So Cosmic Rewind is great. We love that. Have you ridden Mission Breakout in Disneyland?
Yeah.
Okay, then you'll love. I mean, it's like that, only better.
Tron's also really good. I'm not really like a big Tron movie person, but the ride itself, as long as you know it's short and it's gonna go quick, like it's so much fun.
Oh yeah, it looks so cool. Like I loved like Tron Legacy. I know it's like a very like deep cut Disney movie, but like when they announced that, I was like, oh, like this would be so cool. Like I remember first watching that, being like, I want to get into a video game and like do all this stuff. So to do it even for like a few seconds at that ride, like I'm looking forward to that very much.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. But Epcot's great. I mean, we were just down there for the springtime surprise race, and they finally have the middle of the park open back up.
Yeah.
Like, it's been under construction for like 5 years.
Oh,
so they have like the Moana.
So it is really nice now that it's opened up. To your point, it's a much fuller park now. So
wow, I didn't even know that was under construction for 5 years. So I'm excited to see that. That's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, they have like a Moana Journey of Water. It's like kind of like a kids splash pad but elevated, so it's kind of fun. There's like different interactive features with the water, so it's pretty cool. And especially if when's your birthday? Is it gonna be hot?
No, it won't be hot, which would be good. It would be like mid-February, which would be nice. So I'm trying to go before President's Day, because I know that's like a crazy weekend. So like maybe the week before. So it won't be too hot, which would be nice.
When's Princess?
It's around that.
Yeah,
time.
I was gonna say, just look and see when Princess is, because it might be really crowded.
Oh gosh, okay.
The princess race, but just look at that. But yeah, do you have like a dream Disney race that you would like to do? Because you haven't done a Run Disney, right?
I have not. Yeah, I was thinking about because I was gonna do the trip, because it's relatively close to the marathon. Like, because marathon's early Jan, and so my birthday's mid-February, and I was like, oh, like I can probably avoid the crowd. So I was like, oh, like maybe I could do the Disney marathon, which would be cool. And then I think I was pacing someone for like a race. Like I was basically like off remote, and then I came back and I was like, it was like, oh, like Disney marathon registration went live. I was like, well, dang it, there it goes. So I really want to do the Dopey challenge. Like the first time I heard about it, like just so cool to like do like all the races all at once in a consecutive days. And it's cool because it's like, if you total all that up, it's an ultra marathon, which is like super rad. So it's very my type of shtick. Like I love it. But what's super interesting, I've actually, contrary to me doing like 100 miles and doing 100 Ks and doing 50 Ks, I've actually have never done an official road marathon. And I've always thought, for me, I was like, I feel like it's only right if I ever do my first road marathon, it's got to be the Disney marathon. So unfortunately, Disneyland, they only got the half, and like, I want to make my first road marathon the Disney marathon. So if I don't do Dopey, like I think the Disney marathon would be the dream. And I would like, it's so interesting because like I always think like, would I want to like try and PR it, or do I just want to like enjoy it and just kind of be a part of it? So yeah, I feel like it's gotta be the latter for sure.
Yeah. They always bring out like some really interesting, like strange characters. We got what's his name? Barley. We got is his name Barley?
From Onward.
Yeah, from Onward, the older brother.
Oh,
we got him at at the last one, and we also got Barbossa with Captain Jack Sparrow.
Whoa.
And I was so excited. I was like screaming and I was like, Barbossa.
That is
So
awesome.
happy. So yeah, they always they'll try to bring out some ones that they don't bring out very often, and you get all excited about it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I feel like if I go, I'm still gonna be like, you're enjoying this. You're hanging with the characters. This is not like get your BQ at this thing. Like this is like going to be enjoy it. And yeah, I think it's just so cool that you like run through all the parks, which is just such a rad concept. Like, especially when you like look at the map of Disney World and like, I think people who aren't as familiar with Disney World, like don't realize that the parks aren't, like Disneyland where it's like, they're conjoined.
Right there.
So it's just so cool to like be able to do that journey in there. And yeah, I think that would be rad, and also hang out with the characters.
Get all 4 parks, and like people try to hit all 4 parks. You're hitting all 4 parks in a couple hours. And then some people, which I didn't do this, but some people even will hop on, because like some of the parks are actually open whenever you're running through. Some people will actually hop on rides and ride a ride, and I'm like, I kind of feel like next year we should try to hop on a ride. But I know my competitive nature will be like, no, I can't slow down that much.
That's the ultimate power move. Like, imagine just being like, I hit my PR and I hit Dumbo when I was out there too. So it was like I'd be like, oh my gosh, like that is amazing. Like, let's go. So I feel like that is the power move of the century.
It is.
Yeah,
it is.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, I gotta say, I was never not as familiar with you and your podcast. Angela definitely, listened, but so did not really know, kind of how inspirational you were and things, and the positivity. But this has been great. I mean, for me, again, somebody who is more novice at running, really, really informative and kind of inspirational, and I think a lot of good things for me to keep in mind as I kind of train for the marathon and everything. So this has been great. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, of course. And thank you too so much. And man, I'm so excited for your first marathon. Like, enjoy the moment, enjoy the journey, like the long runs, everything that you're like about to embark on. It's such like just an incredible journey, and just be prepared for like just such a rewarding experience. And like, it's one that, yes, like the race is amazing. Like, obviously you're going to be in Disney. It's going to be so rad, but like that process, I remember like first training up for like your first big, it is so rad. So you're going to enjoy it. Like, I'm so stoked for you. And Angela, I'm so stoked for you to go back for another dopey, which is going to be awesome. And you two are amazing. So seriously, like, I think it's people like you that just get me so stoked about Disney, beyond the movies, beyond the parks. Like, the people are just like incredible. And you two are bar none, just so awesome and great hosts. And I just had so much fun chatting with y'all. So anyone listening, you are listening to the right podcast, because these two are amazing humans. And I'm just so thankful that, you had me on the show here.
Oh,
Thank you.
So
And good luck in
much,
Cocodona.
Joe. Yeah, good luck.
Thank you.
There's a live stream for anybody who listened to this and, want to follow Joe. There is a live stream of Cocodona. So it starts on May 6th, and you can like keep track of where he is, and they have some cameras. So, it's really cool to keep track of. And you can kind of like watch it during the day, put it on and off. I don't know. It's like a whole sporting event.
Yeah. It's wild. They'll have cameras in my face when I'm probably like looking so bad. But, I always tell myself, if the camera comes in my face, smile, Hakuna Matata, put on that smile, and just let it go. So I'm hoping that Joy is going to be driving the joysticks in my head like the entire 250 miles. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and beside the podcast, if our listeners want to like learn more, follow you on social, like how would they
hire you as a coach?
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yeah. So as they mentioned, like my podcast, Everyday Ultra, you can find it on any platforms as well. We cover all things running, how to be a better endurance athlete, whether you're going for an ultra or not. Like, we have tons of tips on there. I'm also very active on Instagram at Joe Corcione, just my first and last name. Feel free to reach out, shoot me a DM. I'm happy to answer any questions about running, about Disney, anything like that. So give me a follow too. And if you're interested in coaching, also reach out as well, and we can have a chat too. And whether you're training for your first dopey challenge, your first marathon, first 5K, first 100 miler, or want to join me at Cocodona, then let me know. I'd love to get you there, because it's a fun process in the end of the day, and always love connecting with anyone else who loves Disney too. So would love to meet you.
Yeah, we can put some of the stuff down in the
we'll put links to all that in
your
the
links.
description too.
Sweet. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it.
All right. We appreciate it. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you so much, Joe.
Appreciate you too. Thanks so much.
All right, want to thank Joe again for being on. And again, we will
Yes.
put links in the description to his social media if you're interested in following him. But want to thank everybody again for listening. If you've not done so, please leave us a rating or a review. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast. It really helps, and we really appreciate it.
Thanks for lending us your ears.
Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you here next week.
Bye-bye.